Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass. Thank you for watching this Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, the makers of Morning Farm Report. Our software gives growers the insights to make the best decisions possible about their operations. Well, I wanted to start tonight by looking at an animation here of the U.S. radar. So this is a mosaic of all 160 radars we have across the country. And here is what is kind of left of once Hurricane Harvey. It has now been downgraded to a tropical depression, but don't let that fool you. This is still producing enormous amounts of rain. Now the question is where is Harvey going? After all the destruction it's done in parts of Texas, where is Harvey going in the near future? And some clues lie in the radar echoes that you're seeing here. First, we have a cold front draped across the northern part of the Corn Belt, and it's kicked off some showers and storms late in the evening on Wednesday that are progressing to the south. And it's going to be the interplay between that cold front and Harvey that's going to make things interesting over the next few days for the lower and mid-Mississippi River valleys, getting over into parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and the Ohio River Valley. So basically on the eastern side of Harvey's circulation, a lot of Gulf moisture being pulled in this direction. We're going to take a look at just how much precipitation in a moment. So if we kind of step back and just look at the last 7 days, I had to actually adjust my color bar on my 7-day precipitation maps so that I could get the max to be 50 inches. And that's what Harvey did. You can see down here we have actually a new all-time record of rainfall from a tropical system at just over 50 inches. And that is just an astounding and incredible amount of rain. And I know that you've all been watching the news and seen the pictures and images of just how bad of a disaster this is. From a meteorological standpoint, I'm just going to say that there is a very strong chance here that Harvey becomes one of our top 3 most costly U.S. natural disasters ever, just by sheer, volume of rain that this has put down. We're talking over 20 trillion gallons of water so far, and it's not done. Now, just step away from the tropics here, down in Texas and Louisiana, where this disaster is unfolding, and come back to the Midwest briefly. Notice this color in through here is better than an inch of rain, which means we had a lot of precipitation and some storms producing over 2 to 3 inches of rain as they came across the Corn Belt. So this was quite a bit of rain to help our corn and soybean crops finish well that we at least saw over the last 7 days. But again, we have some precip moving through parts of Wisconsin and the northern Illinois on that front tonight, and that's going to be a key kind of thing to watch over the coming days for predicting where Harvey's going to go. So let me take you up a few thousand feet in the atmosphere and show you what the wind flow looked like late in the night on Wednesday. It's kind of crazy to see all of this, but we have Tropical Depression 14 here south of the Baja. We have Harvey spinning here in the lower Mississippi River Valley. And then we have kind of the remnants of Tropical Depression 10 here. And it's neat because we have a big ridge out west. That's what's causing all the heat problems out west and the red flag warnings we're going to see in a few minutes. But it's right here that the front is diving to the south. And Harvey, as it's kind of continuing to move up the Mississippi River Valley, is going to have to meet these winds. And that's going to help steer Harvey on off in this direction. And that's, of course, what the National Hurricane Center is seeing. Harvey, staying as a depression, is going to move basically through parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and then potentially dump quite a bit of rain in parts of western Tennessee and western Kentucky before moving up toward the Ohio River Valley, possibly bringing quite a bit of heavy rain in southern Indiana and Ohio. What's neat is that the high pressure center that is behind that cold front is really what's going to keep Harvey from moving too far to the north. But basically the southeastern part of the United States over the next 48 hours is going to be kind of under the gun for the heavier rain. Now, this is also going to cool down a big section of the Corn Belt, dropping temperatures, about 10 to 12 degrees over what they've been over the last couple of days. But we are going to see the rebound of kind of some warmer conditions coming up the Great Plains as the circulation brings some warmer air into this area. So this is kind of a temporary cool down. We're going to take a look at a more permanent cool down just in a few minutes here. But there you can kind of see what Harvey is up to. Now, in terms of kind of weather hazards across the country, late in the night on Wednesday, we had the flash flood watches and the flood watches and the flood warnings kind of out in this area. And that's basically just following the path of Harvey. Out west, because of that huge ridge, these are all red flag warnings. We have an excessive heat watch out, and basically their weekend is going to be a scorcher because of the position of that big ridge out west, while most of the Corn Belt has to deal with a broader trough. We'll take a look at that pattern in just a moment. Now let's just again come back to what we expect Harvey to do in terms of precipitation. The animation's taken us through the next 10 days as forecast by the GFS model late in the afternoon on Wednesday. And what we're seeing here is Harvey has the potential, as it goes through parts of Tennessee and Kentucky, especially western parts of those two states, to maybe drop 3+ inches. We may be getting even higher than that. The model might be overdoing some of this, but we are seeing some pretty heavy rainfall. I'll say this also before I come back up to the Corn Belt. There is some concern that there might be more precipitation coming out of the Gulf that may go right back over to that same region here from Corpus Christi to Houston. So they may not be done with rain yet. There's a lot of uncertainty, but I'm watching it very closely, as any additional rain here is just going to make this flood fight so much worse. The rain you do see coming across the Corn Belt early in this animation, watch again right there, that's on that front that's sagging to the south. But really, at least the next 5 days, most of the Corn Belt's going to see pretty dry weather, unless you're here in parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, and the southern parts of Indiana and Ohio, where we're seeing the heavier rain in through this area. But again, that's all compliments of Harvey. Now, in my last few video updates, I've been very concerned about the overall flow pattern of the atmosphere establishing itself by the time we get into maybe a couple days after Labor Day here, so midweek next week, into this highly amplified pattern where we have a big ridge to the west, that's what's keeping the west so hot, and a rather deep trough that's cutting into the Great Lakes. And we discussed, yes, it's rare to have a very early September frost that gets a lot of the Corn Belt. That's last time that happened, I think we got to go back to like 1974. But we just discussed how we were flirting with these really cool temperatures, especially in the very northern parts of the Corn Belt, talking about northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and parts of Michigan because of this trough. Well, I want to show you what the latest model output is, and what it's really kind of showing me is, at least on the 6th and again on the 7th, 8th, and 9th, we're not going to be really knocking on the door here of those, low 30s. There is the chance that if the skies clear out, these temperatures which we're seeing would be the overnight lows here on September 6th. We could be seeing some upper 30s, and if it calms down and clears out, there could be a couple of patches in here where it might get cold enough to bring some very small regions of frost. We're still watching, but this is way north in the Corn Belt. And again, looking at September 8th, we already see the rebound of warmth coming back here into the western Corn Belt, but that trough hangs on in this area. So maybe the UP of Michigan could see some cooler temperatures, but the lakes are so warm around it, that's going to really provide quite a bit of sensible heating, keeping it from getting too cold. So this has taken the early frost threat off of the table, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be watching this overall flow pattern as we go throughout the month of September, which we're going to look at here in a few moments. Now, I want to take you back to the tropics before I give you that longer range outlook. We got another system to deal with, and it's this one right here. It is Tropical Storm Irma. Now, I want you to watch this animation. What I'm going to show you here is model agreement from all 20 members of the GFS ensemble. They're all kind of predicting together where they expect weather systems to be. Now, as we move forward, what I'm watching is the position of the subtropical high, which forms and reforms here across the North Atlantic, because the steering winds around that subtropical high are clockwise like this, and it will basically tell Irma where to go. As we move forward, what I see is the subtropical high really establishes itself right here in the North Atlantic. And that clockwise flow is going to keep Irma in what we call the main development region, where the sea surface temperatures are very warm and currently wind shear is relatively low, allowing Irma to survive and strengthen. Now, what's neat is a high pressure system moves off of the northeast part of the United States by the time we get into September 3rd, and that's going to work together with the subtropical high, as you see here getting into Labor Day. And this is what's important. The position of that high and this low will work together. So the clockwise flow around that high, keeping Irma here to the south, not allowing it to curve. Now, what is important to see here is if this high pressure system, if it can get to the east fast, that will help take Irma to the north sooner and not make it a major player for the United States. But there's a lot of uncertainty with that. Right now, the high pressure center is not doing that. And that's why by the time we get out to September 6th, what we're seeing here is that high staying here in the north central Atlantic, making Irma kind of skirt the Lesser Antilles, going north of Puerto Rico and possibly toward the east coast of the United States. Here is where we get into some major uncertainty, just so that you know, let me be clear about this, some major uncertainty. Notice how the models, as we move out to the 9th and into the 11th here. We're way out in the forecast. They spread considerably on the potential path of Irma, and we shouldn't expect more of the models than that at this point. In fact, if we look at the European model output, you can see it's got a tightly kind of packed here forecast track of Irma in the short term. By the time we get to next week, so this is 7 days from now, so this is next Wednesday, pretty considerable spread. Some models allowing that high pressure center to keep Irma off of the East Coast, but others painting a different picture. What I'm concerned about is the conditions ahead of Irma are very conducive to development. And that's why we're going to see Irma strengthen into a hurricane more than likely very soon, possibly reaching up to Category 2 or even Category 3 or more status, making it a major hurricane. So we have to watch this. This is our next system to keep a very, very close eye on. Now, given all that activity in the tropics, I'm going to show you the latest long-range outlook by the ECMWF. Now, this was run on the 28th of August. So what that shows us is that a lot of this precipitation here you're seeing in Texas, Louisiana, well, that came from the model runs picking up on Harvey. But this was also part of Tropical Depression 10 and potentially what Irma might do. So we're really seeing the East Coast and the Gulf Coast staying very wet through the month. But what's interesting is the models have picked up on a bit of a drier pattern for a lot of the Corn Belt. And I do have some confidence in this forecast. This drier pattern here will help the crop, eventually dry down as we get through the month of September. And again, this runs out all the way to September 29th. Maybe the thing that we have to be concerned about is that over that same time as we're, losing our daylight hours, we are expecting the overall flow pattern to stay ridge west, trough east for the most part. Not every day, but that's the general pattern over the next 30 days. That keeps the eastern half of the Corn Belt, in fact, almost all of the Corn Belt, cooler than average for the next month. Doesn't mean we won't see heat temporarily, but this is at least saying the overall flow keeps us in that cooler pattern. Now that just tells me that as we get in toward the end of September, we got to just keep a close eye on the flow for the potential for an early frosting a little bit farther south than it would have otherwise. Also, this may kind of impact the way that the beans finish, given that they need those longer daylight hours to do well. And if it's going to be drying through here and we're going to be a little bit cooler than average, that's just going to delay things. And we got to keep a very close eye on that as we kind of look toward the end of our bean crop. But the recent rains in the same area really went a long way to help that bean crop kind of finish well. So it's quite a bit of information to take in. I hope that you found the information useful. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this forecast. We hope you look forward to Agrible's next ag forecast coming out on Monday. To get morning farm report for your operations, complete with a daily email that shows a snapshot of your field conditions each morning, go to morningfarmreport.com. Sign up for that free account. Full grower accounts are free if you sign up for our Sustainable Yield program or for our growers who work with ADM merchandisers. I look forward to talking to you again on Monday. See you then.